Harlem hasn't felt an earthquake like this in years. But today, everything changed. Max B, the name that once split Harlem right down the middle, has suddenly re-emerged. Not alone, not quietly, but standing shoulder to shoulder with two legends he was never supposed to be next to again, Camron and Mase. And let me tell you, the moment this clip hit the internet, the reaction wasn't normal. It wasn't casual. It was historic. Fans flooded timelines with memes, reactions, shock, tears, and straight-up disbelief. Some said this was the reunion Harlem deserved. Others said this is the power shift the industry never saw coming. But everyone agrees on one thing. Something major has been set in motion. But while Harlem is celebrating, there's one man who is absolutely not clapping, Jim Jones. Because behind this link-up lies years of tension. Betrayal, alliances, street politics, interviews, subliminals, and deep wounds that never fully healed. And this moment, this reunion, this picture, it hits harder than anyone expected. So the real question isn't just why Max be linked with Cam and Madollery. The real question is, what does this mean for Harlem? For the diplomats, for hip-hop, and for Jim Jones' legacy? Because this wasn't just a handshake. This wasn't just a friendly moment. This was a signal. And today, we're breaking down exactly what that signal means. And why the whole internet can't stop talking about it. Harlem felt a tremor today. The kind that doesn't come from the ground, but from the culture itself. A city built on legends, loyalty, rivalries. And unforgettable stories suddenly found itself reliving a moment nobody believed would ever happen again. One single clip hit the internet, and in seconds, Harlem wasn't just watching, it was gasping. Max B, Camron, and Madollery in the same space, laughing, shaking hands. Vibing like time had never wounded anything between them. For a generation that grew up on Dipset energy, street politics, and the wave Max B brought to hip-hop, this moment felt unreal. It all started with a short video, just a few seconds long, no dramatic angle, no big announcement, but enough to break years of assumptions. Max B walks in, Camron leans in with a grin and a handshake. Mae is already laughing like he's welcoming back an old friend. The chemistry didn't just look real, it looked effortless. And that's why the internet exploded. Every fan knew this moment wasn't supposed to happen. Every Harlem native understood how deep this shock ran. And everyone who knows the history immediately asked one question. What is Jim Jones thinking right now? To understand how powerful this reunion was, you have to go back to the beginning. Max B and Jim Jones weren't always rivals. They were once a team. Max B wasn't just another Harlem artist, he was the wave god. The melodic genius behind some of the biggest moments Jim Jones enjoyed during the Bird Gang era. When Max joined the camp, people thought the two would take Harlem to the top together. For a short time, that's exactly what happened. Their sound, their presence, their energy, it all aligned. But success can be poison. As Max grew in popularity, tension grew even faster. Business disagreements, money conflicts, paperwork drama, street rumors, it all stacked up. The frustration turned into subliminals. Subliminals turned into direct shots. And eventually, the relationship burned completely. Once Max B went away, people assumed the bridge between him and Jim Jones was gone forever. No repairs, no conversations, no forgiveness. Just a chapter closed so tightly that seeing Max stand next to anyone from that world seemed impossible. And then comes Camron and Mae to Harlem giants with a history just as complicated. Childhood friends turned rivals, turned enemies, turned partners in one of the internet's biggest hip-hop shows. Their reunion alone shocked fans. But adding Max B next to them, that felt like an alternate timeline. Something nobody predicted. Cam always respected Max's creativity, even when politics got messy. Madollery always recognized real talent, especially someone who reshaped melodies like Max did. So when the three of them linked, it didn't feel forced, it felt right. Like a moment waiting to happen. The internet's reaction was immediate chaos. Fans were posting memes within minutes, screaming into comment sections, tagging everyone they knew. Some said Harlem was finally whole again. Others said this was bigger than any Dipset reunion, bigger than G-Unit drama, bigger than anything hip-hop had seen in years. And beneath all the excitement was a running joke flooding the internet somewhere. Jim Jones must be furious. But fury isn't what fans noticed. It was silence. Jim Jones said nothing. No Instagram posts, no hinted messages, no interviews, no jokes. Just silence. For someone as active and reactive as Jim, that silence was the loudest response possible. Because this moment didn't just bring Max B back into the spotlight, it reopened conversations about history, influence, legacy, and who really built what during that era. The timing makes everything more intense. Max B's return is near. His presence is rising again. He's becoming part of the conversation just by existing. Meanwhile, Camron and Mase run one of the most influential hip-hop commentary platforms today. For Max to appear next to them is not a coincidence. It's not random. It's a message, a positioning, a cultural reset. Max B isn't slipping back into the industry quietly. He's walking in loudly with Harlem's biggest voices standing beside him. People inside the room described the vibe as pure chemistry. Max wasn't timid or cautious. He looked confident, relaxed, like a man stepping back into a world that finally welcomes him again. Camron looked genuinely happy. Not politicking, not forcing anything. Mae treated Max like a long-lost brother returning home. The energy was natural. And that naturalness is what drove fans insane. Because when reunions feel forced, people can tell. But when they feel real, they shake the whole culture. This moment also pulls forward a big question. What happens next? Does Max appear on Cam and Mae's show? Does new music come? Will Harlem's Giants actually rebuild on Camera? And most importantly, how will Jim Jones respond when he finally decides to speak? Because right now, Max B standing with Cam and Ma. $E sends a message that Harlem hasn't felt in a long time. Unity, nostalgia, power, and unfinished business. For Harlem, this wasn't just a reunion. It was a spark. Something that brought back memories, raised new possibilities, and shook the city's foundation in a way only Max B could. And the craziest part? This is only the beginning. The story hasn't peaked yet. And Jim Jones' reaction. That's what everyone is waiting for next. The moment that clip of Max B, Camron, and Mase hit the internet, Harlem didn't just react, it shifted. And after the initial shock wore off, all eyes turned toward one silent figure, Jim Jones. Everyone was waiting for the capo to speak, tweet, laugh, clap back, anything. But his silence created more noise than a full rant ever could. When someone like Jim, who always has something to say, chooses not to say a single word, that silence becomes the entire conversation. Fans began analyzing old interviews, digging up past arguments, resurfacing every moment where Jim and Max clashed, trying to predict what he might be thinking right now behind the scenes. Insiders whispered that Jim Jones was caught off guard, not because he didn't expect Max B to resurface. He knew Max would eventually come home, but because of who? Max chose to stand beside first. Camron and Jim Jones were once brothers. Their relationship defined Dipset. But over the years, even their friendship suffered cracks and tension. Cam moved differently. Jim moved differently. They still showed love publicly at times, but the old bond wasn't the same. So when Max B, the man Jim had the deepest fallout with, appeared next to Cam and Mase like everything was cool, it wasn't just symbolic. It was a message Jim couldn't ignore. People close to the Harlem scene said Jim felt blindsided. Not angry in the loud way, not the kind of anger that shows up on Instagram Live, but the quiet kind. The kind that comes from realizing the narrative is shifting, and you didn't choose the direction. Hip-hop is built on stories, on alliances, on who stands next to who. And Max B, after years away, instantly rewrote the story by appearing with Cam and Mahdallah before anyone else. It made Harlem question loyalties, histories, and how much of the past was really behind them. Jim Jones isn't just a rapper. He's a figure whose identity is tied to Harlem's story. And suddenly, that story has a new chapter he didn't write. While fans debated Jim's silence, Max B's momentum kept growing. People started pulling up old footage of Max in interviews, laughing, joking, talking about the wave. Clips resurfaced of him saying he always had love for Harlem despite everything. TikTok accounts began remixing his vocals. People started debating how much he influenced modern rap. And younger fans who never experienced Max during his prime were now discovering him for the first time. That reunion wasn't just a moment, it was a reintroduction. It reminded the world who Max B was, one of the key voices of the movement. But with Max B now back in the conversation, people started questioning whether Max deserved more credit for the sound and the energy of that era. Some argued Jim wouldn't have reached certain heights without Max's creativity. Others pushed back, saying Jim built everything through loyalty and grind. The conversation ignited a mini culture war across social media. Not hateful, just passionate. Harlem loves its legends fiercely, and now the legends were back on the board, reshuffling power, attention, and influence. Meanwhile, people started questioning Camron's motives. Cam isn't the type to make random moves. Everything he does is intentional, strategic, and rooted in a deep understanding of how culture moves. Bringing Max into the picture wasn't just about nostalgia. It was a statement. Cam knows Max carries weight. He knows fans love him. And he knows the internet explodes whenever old Harlem moments resurface. Camron's brand has always been built on timing, doing things right when people least expect them. And bringing Max B in right when his comeback energy is highest was a master play. It made Cam look like the connector, the peacemaker, the one who brings Harlem together when it matters most. Ma's reaction added another layer to the moment. Mahdallah has always been expressive, emotional, outspoken. The way he embraced Max looked genuine, like he appreciated the struggle Max went through and the legacy he built. Mahdallah knows what it feels like to disappear from the industry and return to people still celebrating you. So when he hyped Max up, it felt more real than showmanship. It felt like he saw a piece of himself in Max, someone whose talent was bigger than his circumstances, someone whose story deserved a better ending. Then came the deeper conversations. People started asking, does this mean Max B will appear on the It Is What It Is show? If he does, that would break the internet completely. Imagine Max sitting next to Cam and Mahdallah talking about life, music, old stories, new plans. That episode would overshadow every hip-hop interview of the year. And people close to Cam say he wants it. He knows it would be a cultural moment, not just content. But the real question is, will Max want to go that public that fast? He might. Max has always been charismatic, comfortable on camera, and full of personality. And the world is clearly ready for him again. Meanwhile, Team Jones' possible reactions have become a kind of suspense thriller for fans. Some think he'll eventually address it in an interview. Others think he'll ignore it completely to avoid giving the moment more power. But deep down, everyone knows Jim will speak. He's too much of a personality not to. Whether he keeps it respectful, emotional, or defensive, nobody knows. But whatever he says will define how the next chapter of this story plays out. Hip-hop loves closure, drama, redemption, and tension. This reunion has all of it wrapped into one. Behind closed doors, there's talk that Max becoming home will open doors for new music. Producers are already sending beats. Rappers are already hinting at collaborations. Some insiders say Max wants to work only with people who genuinely showed love during his absence. Others say he's open to rebuilding old bridges. Nothing is confirmed yet, but the energy around him is louder than it's been in years. The industry can feel it. Harlem can feel it. The fans can feel it. This reunion wasn't just a moment captured in a clip. It was a spark that lit up old emotions, old memories, and new possibilities. It put Max B back in the center of a story he helped build. It reminded Harlem of the magic it once had. And it forced Jim Jones, willingly or not, back into a conversation he thought was finished. And now the world is watching closely. Max B is stepping back into the culture he helped shape. Camron and Mase have opened the door. Jim Jones is dealing with the silence around him. And Harlem, for the first time in years, feels alive with tension, excitement, nostalgia, and uncertainty. This story isn't ending, it's just beginning. And the next move from any of these three men could change everything. The energy from Max B's reunion with Camron and Mase didn't fade. It intensified. Harlem was buzzing, social media was flooded, and everywhere you looked, people were dissecting every frame of that viral clip. But while fans debated, speculated, and celebrated, one question lingered over the entire situation. What happens next? How does Jim Jones respond? And what does this mean for the next wave of Harlem's music scene? Jim's silence, intentionally or not, became the driving force of speculation. Hip-hop thrives on tension, drama, and the unresolved. Every fan, every critic, every casual observer started piecing together theories. Some argued that Jim would respond publicly with an Instagram post or a podcast segment. Others believed he would quietly plot his next move, calculating the perfect moment to regain narrative control. Either way, the reality was clear. Max B had successfully reasserted his presence in Harlem's hierarchy without saying a word. That's power. And power in Harlem has always commanded attention, respect, and sometimes fear. Meanwhile, Max B's vibe was unmistakable. He wasn't stepping in like a man desperate to prove himself. He was confident, calm, and fully aware of the cultural ripples he was creating. Camron and Mase recognized it too. Cam, who has always understood the art of timing and influence, orchestrated the moment perfectly. Mase, who carries both respect and nostalgia with him wherever he goes, elevated the energy further by showing Max the recognition and validation he deserved. Together, the three of them weren't just standing in a room, they were sending a message that Harlem's energy could shift without warning. And anyone connected to that energy had to pay attention. Fans, sensing this power move, began theorizing about the bigger implications. If Max B and Camron decide to collaborate on music again, or if Mase brings him into projects, the industry landscape could change overnight. Younger fans who never experienced the height of Max B's influence started discovering him through these viral moments. They were hearing the melodies, hooks, and the charisma that made him legendary. It was a rediscovery, a renaissance. And a reminder that Max's influence had never truly faded, was merely waiting for the right moment to resurface on the streets. The reaction was no less intense. Those who remember the old Max B era felt pride and excitement. Those who witnessed the conflict with Jim Jones wondered about loyalty and alliances. Every corner of Harlem seemed to have an opinion. Every barbershop discussion had a theory. And every social media post sparked new debates. And in the middle of it all, one central figure loomed silently: Jim Jones, the man whose absence and reaction only amplified the impact of the reunion. The speculation wasn't just about personal pride or ego, it was about legacy. For years, Max B's absence left a gap in Harlem's narrative. Camron, Mase, and Jim Jones had each played roles in defining what Harlem music and culture represented. Max returning to prominence threatened to rewrite parts of that story, reminding people that influence isn't just measured by visibility, but by contribution, talent, and the ability to move culture. And the internet, being the internet, quickly dissected every past clip, interview, and song to recontextualize Max's importance. Meanwhile, Cam and Mase were more than strategic allies. They were cultural anchors. They understood that bringing Max B into the public eye wasn't just for nostalgia. It was a calculated reminder that Harlem's legacy is dynamic, evolving, and unpredictable. Max's presence amplified Cam's influence and validated Mase's perspective. creating a trifecta of authority, energy, and credibility that reignited conversations about Harlem's past, present, and future. And then there's the narrative tension. Jim Jones' silence left a vacuum, and in that vacuum, theories thrived. Was he plotting a public response? Was he preparing music to reclaim dominance? Or was he quietly acknowledging that the streets and the fans were ready for Max's resurgence, and that resistance would only fuel the hype? Nobody knew for sure, and that uncertainty fueled engagement, clicks, views, and debates across platforms. Every fan who grew up watching Dipset and Bird Gang dynamics suddenly felt like they were witnessing history in real time, analyzing power plays and alliances as they unfolded. Behind the scenes, insiders hinted that Max B wasn't planning to rush into anything. He's careful, selective, and understands the stakes. But one thing is clear: his re-entry into Harlem's scene is more than symbolic. It's a statement of intent, confidence, and relevance. And as his momentum grows, every move he makes, from public appearances to music releases, will have an amplified effect. The streets, social media, and even industry veterans are paying attention like never before. Fans didn't just react. They celebrated. Memes exploded, video reactions went viral, and commentary flowed nonstop. It wasn't just about nostalgia, it was about the reclamation of Harlem's culture. Max B, once absent, is now a centerpiece. Camron and Mase aren't just supporting players, they're collaborators and validators. Together, they've reignited a narrative that could redefine Harlem's hierarchy and influence the next wave of hip-hop. And in that narrative, Jim Jones' response remains the final cliffhanger. The beauty of this moment is in its layers. It's about music, legacy, influence, and cultural storytelling. It's about the subtle power of presence, how simply being in a room can shift conversations, change narratives, and command attention. Max B's quiet confidence, combined with Camron's strategic understanding and Mase's validation, created a moment that resonates far beyond a single clip or viral post. Harlem felt alive again. The energy was palpable. And the world took notice as the day turned to night. One thing became clear: this reunion was not an ending, was the prologue to something much larger. Max B's reemergence, the support of Camron and ML's silent storm brewing in Jim Jones' camp, are all pieces of a story still unfolding. The internet may have exploded. Harlem may be buzzing. But the real drama, the real moves, and the true power plays are just beginning. Every fan, insider, and observer is now waiting for the next chapter. And when it drops, it will shake Harlem, the streets, and hip-hop culture all over again by the end of the week. This moment will be dissected in interviews, podcasts, and TikToks. It will become a case study of strategy, timing, and cultural awareness. It will inspire conversations about loyalty, influence, and legacy. Max B's return is not just a reunion, it's a shift in the landscape of Harlem music. Camron and Mase proved that alliances matter, that timing is everything, and that culture remembers its true icons. And Jim Jones, his next move will define how history interprets this entire chapter. Until then, Harlem, the internet, and the hip-hop world will be watching every single move, every single post, and every single beat that comes from this explosive reunion. Yo, if you think Harlem just witnessed the most explosive reunion of the decade, hit that like button right now. Don't just scroll past history. Subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss the inside story of Max B, Camron Mase, and Jim Jones. And yo, I need your take. Do you think Jim Jones is going to respond? Drop your thoughts in the comments, because trust me, this story is just heating up. Share this video with every hip-hop fan you know. Tag your crew. And let's see who really knows Harlem history. Remember, the streets are watching, the internet is watching, and now it's your turn to witness the next chapter unfold, are just the beginning. You don't want to miss what happens next.